Hi, today I want to show you how you can add native background location tracking inside of your WeWeb mobile application using the Despia background location SDK. Let's take a look at that together. It's super simple and it's just a few steps to get that going inside of your application. Now, first of all, we want to have your WeWeb application set up. So just create a new project or use an existing project and make sure that that is published. Now, you want to set that project up inside of the Despia editor with your URL right inside of here. And then you want to enable following add-on. You want to go on add-ons and you want to go to background location tracking and make sure that that is enabled. That's very important. But you also only want to enable that when you really need this feature. So please do not enable this feature if you are not using it, because then you may get some issues with the App Store or Google Play Store when it comes to the permissions and you getting data that is not required, if that makes sense. Now, once we have that, we want to build the application again, but I already have it built, as you can see right inside of here. So I have it right here on my phone, but you want to build this if you have not already. Now, let's go back to our documentation for WeWeb, which you can access under weweb.despia.com. Now, let's start setting this up. Now, we need to follow a few steps to get this set up, and we already have a template here specifically designed for WeWeb, which I will also be putting under this video here. But let's set this up together. Now, first of all, in WeWeb, we want to have something that will invoke the ability to track the background location. In our example, because I'm just talking about the principles here, we're just going to have it be a button. But, this invocation can be, it can be anything. It can be on load, it can be on the specific API call completion, really whatever you want it to be. But let's call this start location tracking, right? So now I have this button that will invoke the ability to start tracking the location. Now we want to set that up. So I want to go here and I want to create a new workflow. This workflow will be called track location. There you go. And you can add some comments if you want as well. Now I'm going to add an action, and that will be a custom JavaScript action. Excuse me. And now I'm just going to go to the documentation here, and I have prepare Despia runtime for native location, and we will start invoking the native background location functionality using the global Despia object. So let's copy that. That is window.despia equals background location on : //. Let's copy that, and let's go in here and let's go on edit code, and let's paste this code snippet inside of here. This will invoke the native capability for Despia to access the background location even when the device is closed. Now I'm going to name that. I'm just going to do Despia SDK background location. There you go. Wonderful. And now after I initialize that, there is another step that I need to run as a custom JavaScript. Let's call this monitor background location plus events, right? Now this will be the code where we will actually be starting to observe the background location, where we start watching it, and then we're also going to call a WeWeb workflow to funnel that data back into it. So now I will go on edit code inside of here, and I'll make the code editor a little bit bigger because there's a little bit more code that we need to put inside of here. Now under here, you see we have start watching the location, and it's a hybrid approach. So it's a hybrid approach, meaning this will also work on your web application. It's just that the window.despia won't run on your web application, meaning you will not have background tracking while, the PWA is closed. That's an external perk that you have when you run this specific code in Despia, but it's important that you run the window.despia to initialize this before you run this browser-based background or location tracking API. So when you run this location tracking API, it turns into a background location tracking API. We set it up that way so that you can reuse some of your or most of your web application code if you already have existing geolocation capabilities, because it would be a pain rebuilding that specifically with certain handlers that we would register for you. So we have made it that way that it would be easier when you're migrating from PWA to Despia. So let's copy that here, and we want to put this code now right inside of here. So what does this code do? We have the ability to enable GPS. We have the ability to put a timeout in there. This will be how long to wait for reading. And then we have a maximum age, which will be in milliseconds, you know, how old the location can be and before it kind of like refreshes and gets some new data. Now, the most interesting thing is here, it's saying your WeWeb workflow ID, because we would need to dynamically replace this. So let's just close this for now, but now we need to get the WeWeb workflow ID. Now, the thing is, we can only run this code linear. This code can only run from top to bottom. It can't go from top to bottom, from top to bottom, from top to bottom without having to have it invoke all the time. So what we need to do is we need to go and call another workflow that's on the page from this click or API completion workflow. And this workflow, this other workflow, will have parameters so we can put the data back inside of it. So I have this workflow. When I click on the button, it gets the location. Now the location is not being retrieved when I click on the button. It will start listening to the location when I click on the button, but every time I move my phone, I want to get the latest data. So every time you move the phone with this code, you're calling a workflow, which will then get the parameters with the data, and it could then use that data to do a real-time communication to your backend or do an API call or do whatever you want with that data. So this is kind of like how we handle this asynchronously without the need for people to click the button every 10 seconds to refresh the location, because that wouldn't be a good user experience, right? So we need to get that workflow first of all set up so we can funnel back into it. And we also need to get its ID. So let's take a look at that right now, because that will be the next step. So let's close this for now. And now we're just going to go on logic here, and we will create a new workflow. I'm going to call this workflow catch background location. There you go. I'm catching the background location. And now we will need to register the parameters for this catch workflow that will be called every time the location changes. So I will go here on parameters and add a new parameter. Now we need to add them one by one. It's a little bit of a tedious work, but we're just going to do this together with some sample data here. So I'm going to add latitude, and I'm going to go in here and I'll name this latitude, which will be type number. And now I'm going to add an example latitude of, you know, whatever our documentation suggests you to use for testing. There you go. I'm going to put that right inside of here. Now we'll go with the next parameter. That will be the longitude. We will now go back to WeWeb. We will add another parameter, and we will put that longitude inside of here. That will be a number as well. So we will add this as a number, and now we will go back to the test value. So we will just copy that test value here, very simple, and we will paste this here inside of here as the test value. We will add another parameter. Again, we will go back to the documentation, go accuracy. I will copy that. I will paste accuracy here in the parameter. I will make it type number, and I will copy the sample accuracy number. Let's copy that here, and let's put that in the test value for this parameter. Let's add a new parameter. That will now be the altitude, and I will copy altitude, and I will paste that inside of here. I will now make this a number, and now I will copy the sample value. So I will just copy this right inside of here, and I will just put this right inside of here. Look at that, beautiful. Now we need to do a few more things. So let's go on altitude accuracy, and let's put this as a parameter again inside of here, altitude accuracy. Oh, altitude accuracy. That will be type number, and we will now go and this will be 3. I don't need to copy that, so I'll just write 3 as a sample value. Let's add another parameter. We got to scroll down a little bit. We have lots of parameters. We're now going to add heading. Now I'm going to put heading inside of here. All of those things can be very valuable based on your use case. So this is why Despia gives you access to all of those. You can just, leave out the ones that you don't want. Again, we'll copy the heading sample value and we will put this right inside of here. Now we're going to add another parameter and we're going to go to the documentation again. We will copy the parameter speed. We'll paste speed inside of here. There will be a number. We will copy the sample value for speed. And I will paste that sample value for speed right inside of here. Now I'm going to add a timestamp so we know when this location was added, like when this location change happened. That will be also type number. And now we will just copy the sample timestamp from our documentation. And we're just going to put this right inside of here. Super simple. Let's add a parameter again. And now we're going to add the watch ID, which will be something that we will use to stop watching the location when the user stops that. So let's go to the number here. And now I will copy the sample watch ID. And now we're going to put this right inside of here. So now we have all the parameters that we can catch whenever a location change event happens. And now, how the heck do we get the ID? Because we can't get the workflow ID from this interface of WeWeb. Now this is a little bit fun because we need to go on this more, on the more section, and we go to development, which will then have essential open dev editor. And I will click on there, and in a new tab, it will open the WeWeb dev editor. So I will now go on logic. I will go on catch background location, and now you see I can copy the ID for the workflow. So now we can close this, and I will exit out of this catch workflow, and I will go on the button again. I will go on the event, and then I will go to monitor background location, and I will open the code editor, and where we had your WeWeb workflow ID, I will just paste the ID right inside of here. So we're copying, we're calling that appropriate workflow, and we're putting in the appropriate data. There you go. Let's close this now. Beautiful. So now we have this nicely set up, and we go back to our logic panel in WeWeb. We go back to our global workflow with catch background location, and now we will use this to update the variable. Now, you could also use this to take this data and to do a real-time request to your backend or do an API call. You could add some debouncing to that, so you're not making an API call every millisecond if they're running fast, for example. But I'll leave that open to your creativity, but I want to show you how you can update this in a variable, so we can take a look at that together in this video. So let's add an action, and I will now go change variable value, and I will say update location variable. Now, first of all, we need to also create a variable. So let's go to the data panel in WeWeb, create a new variable, and let's call that location. And now I want to put in a sample value. So this will be actually type object. And now I will go to our documentation with a sample value and put the sample value inside of here with the difference that all the numbers inside of here will be null, right? So I'm going to make them all null because they're not available. That's the initial value, right? But this will help us structure this inside of our application. So I'll just make them null. And then when the Despia runtime updates those things in the live application, that will all nicely populate. So let's go inside of here and let's make that null. And I'll make that null. And I'll make that null. There you go. Now we have null on all of them, and we don't need to do anything else with the variable now. Beautiful. So now we have this all null. You see that's the current value, and we can now close this. Now I go back on the global workflow, that is change background location. I will go back to my update variable location. I will select the variable location, and I will now go on value, and now we will go on JavaScript here, and I will now just create an object and return the appropriate parameters that have been funneled into here, into this workflow. Now, we could just use JavaScript to update the variable direct in the other piece of code, in the other on-click workflow that we're running. But if you want to, on change, call your WebSocket, you would need to do it like this, so you get that data from the Despia runtime back into the native WeWeb ecosystem, which makes it super easy and simple to work with, because you got that visual editor. You don't have to work with all this custom code. It's just, let's do a little bit of custom code to get it to talk to Despia, and then Despia will funnel it back into the native WeWeb workflow, where also WeWeb AI and their assistants can help you, with further logic, right? We want to bring things back into the ecosystem. That's the whole intention here, right? So you can build those remarkable workflows and native functionalities from the editor that you already love. So let's now go and copy this object, and we'll do some manual rewriting. I will just paste that here, and now I will just remove all the values here, and then we will just fill in the gaps from the parameter values, so we get this as a structured variable that we can then use to update a map, or you could also take this object directly and send it to your backend. Really, it's really up to you what you want to do with it. But I will now go here, and you see what I have defined here. This is why I have them defined as a sample value, all as null, so I can see it in the native WeWeb preview. So let's go to latitude and map it with oh, no, wrong. Not that. This will be the variable we're setting right now. We will need to go into the workflow parameters, right, and get them, and that's why we have sample data inside of here. Look how nice that looks. So we will map latitude with latitude, we will map longitude with longitude, we will map accuracy with accuracy, we will map altitude with altitude, we will map altitude accuracy with altitude accuracy, we will map heading with the, so we will add heading in the object that we're returning when setting the variable with heading from the parameter input, so we get the parameter inputs back into the variable. It's a little bit of something to grasp, but once you get it, it's pretty simple. We'll map speed with speed, we'll map timestamp with timestamp, and we'll map watch ID with watch ID. There you go. Now you see, this is the current value, and this looks beautiful. So I can actually test this, and as you can see, it now sets the variable correctly. So now this is it. This is now tracking the location, and we have the watch ID and all that kind of stuff. Now, there is another thing that we need to do, because now we also need to add the functionality for them to stop tracking the location. So for that, I'm going to add another button below here, and I will call this stop location tracking. There you go, stop location tracking. And now I'll create a workflow for that. So let's say stop location tracking, that will be the name of the workflow. And I will now add another custom JavaScript piece. I will name this Despia SDK stop background location, and I will now edit the code. And now in here, I will go to our documentation, copy this handler, which is window.despia equals background location of : // which is our deep link scheme. I will paste that inside of this custom JavaScript block. I'll close that, and then under here, I'll add another custom JavaScript block, and I will say stop location watch. Stop location watch, or let's say stop watching location. That makes more sense grammarly. And let's go on edit code, make it a little bit bigger. And now we're going to copy this code here. And now I just paste this inside of here. Now you see we have this const in here with watch ID, and this would come from our WeWeb variable. So I'll just remove this, go to our variables here, and I will, from project, and I will just drag the watch ID variable inside of this field here, or I'll just click on it. There you go. and this will give us the watch ID variable from the global variable with all the information from WeWeb. And this will then stop the watching process, so it will also stop all further events. There you go. Now you can close this. Now you can add more logic, like only allow stop watching if watch ID is not set. And if you stop watching, you can reset the whole object, which is actually a good idea that we should do. So let's close that here. And let's go on data, let's go on location, and let's copy the sample value here. I'm afraid it will turn it into JavaScript. So let's just copy that as JSON here. And let's go back to the logic, to the workflow, to the global workflow. No, my bad. We need to go to the stop watching on the onClick workflow. And then after here, I will also update variable, change variable value, and I will say clear watch variable, because, yeah, clear location variable, because we are stopping to watch the location. And I will now make sure that this is going on the location variable. And now the new value will be actually hard-coded, and that will just be, you know, the default value here, making everything null again. So this will clear it. So if I set this, you see, it clears it. It was successful. Beautiful. So now I can close it. And now I want to make this visible for you, because, you know, if we're sending stuff to the backend now in this video, you can't see what's actually happening. So I'm just going to add a text area, like an input below here, and I will just style it a little bit. So let's make sure that we have a long answer. We'll do 13 rows, and we're going to make height 250 pixels, width 100%, max width 375 pixels. So that's minimum width, not max width. We'll do max width. Okay, so I have my box with data. Okay, beautiful. Placeholder, no placeholder. And the initial value here will just be the location object, which right now will not show anything. So we'll turn this into JavaScript, and we will add JSON stringify. And WeWeb has this thing when you enter JSON stringify, it just adds stringify. So just write JSON with a period after it in front of it, and inside of those braces, put the location object in there. So we will see the data here visually. That's what we want to take a look at, right? Beautiful. So now we will close this, and now you got that, and now we can see if it actually works. So let's deploy the application with WeWeb. I'm just going to deploy this, and then we will take a look inside of the Despia mobile application, and we'll see if it works. Wonderful. Now it's installing all the dependencies in the WeWeb editor. It's building the application. You can take a look at the logs here. Pretty cool. It works actually quite similar to how Despia works, because it actually builds it on the server. It's live now, so I can open my native mobile application built in Despia and WeWeb. And now you will see it wants to access my location. How cool is that? I will say allow while using app. I will say okay, allow everything, okay, perfect. So now you see I have this data inside of here, which, you know, in like this improvised text area. But now when I do start location watching, you see how my location is changing, because, you know, actually what I'm doing is I'm moving my phone. So see how it's changing the location? So I'm now getting the real-time location based on phone movements. You can add debouncing if this will overload your server. That's something that you can definitely do. Or, you know, use real-time events and make it less of a workload for your backend, just using WebSockets or something like this. And then if I go on stop watching location, you'll see that it stops the location, clears the stuff. I can keep moving my phone, no event happens again. And then I can click on this again, and I will start watching again. I can stop watching, and it will also work while the application is closed, because if you go to the Despia dashboard and enable this background location setting, meaning you are putting the certain entitlements and targets into your application automatically with our wonderful one-click build tool that makes sure that you have the ability to do background processing, which allows you to run those workflows in the background even while the app is closed or the phone is on standby. There you go. That's how you add background location inside of WeWeb for your iOS or Android application built using Despia and WeWeb. So you can build amazing applications, amazing mobile applications using WeWeb in combination with the Despia runtime, and you can one-click publish them directly from the Despia editor to the App Store and Google Play Store. It's super simple, one click. Now, if you love WeWeb, you can build mobile applications directly inside of WeWeb with WeWeb first class support from Despia directly, and you can build all the stuff, all the logic, all the workflows, all the stuff within the environment inside of WeWeb that you already love, right? You can use parameters, you can use events, and you just sprinkle in a few little custom code blocks here and there with like one-line code snippets, and this is how you can transform your whole PWA to be a real native mobile application that will make millions of people happy inside of the app stores. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about Despia or need any help with the setup, we're here to help you 24/7. Just go on customer support and we will help you with whatever you need in turning your WeWeb application into a native mobile application. We're here to help you. And yeah, I can't wait to see all the exciting mobile applications that you will be building using WeWeb and Despia. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.